I was totally gonna wear black for this video, and then I realized that might be disrespectful for those who really love this series. No, not that series. We're talking about Fourth Wing. I know it's kind of confusing and a little bit awkward. Hello! If you're new, I'm Leandra, and I'm going to be talking about the 10 things I hate about Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. For those who are super excited about the third installment coming out, Onyx Storm, I hope you have as much fun as you did with Fourth Wing and Iron Flame. My intention is not to yuck anyone's yum, but I do want to let you all know that I will be tearing this book apart. So, you've been warned. If you truly are new to my channel and this is the first video you've ever clicked on, it's a weird place to start, but you know what? We're gonna go with it. I need you to know that I don't tend to read romance. I don't tend to read Romantasy, and both tend to not really be positive reviews for me. I've had 5 stars in at least romance. With that said, I do have a history of having some rant reviews on this channel following some very hyped and well-loved romances. If you want to check them out, please do. But today, the subject is going to be Romantasy, and that is going to be Fourth Wing. And because I don't really read romance, I don't really read Romantasy. Why, Leandra? Why would you put this on your TBR for January? Well, I have my parents to thank. They very sweetly bought this for me for my birthday in September, not knowing that this just wouldn't be the book for me. The bookseller really talked the talk and got that bank. Good for them. But now I need to make it worth it because my parents paid good hard money for this book. And so this is why the video is going to exist. And if you're watching, a quick note to my mom and dad, thank you so much for buying it for me. I know you had the best of intentions, and I'm so sorry, but this was really bad. But that doesn't mean I wouldn't want to try Romantasy again. So while I discuss everything I hate regarding this book, if there's a Romantasy that you think actually could work for me, please don't be shy and put them in the comments and let me know how varied the Romantasy subgenre, or I guess it's a genre blend, could be, because I do believe that there's an area that could work for me. I just don't know what it is just yet, and I think that going for the really hyped book talk books just probably isn't the right way for me to do it. But without further ado, let's get through this list and start with number 1. I absolutely hate how the military is designed in this book. Either they're incompetent or they're evil. And I don't know which one Rebecca Yarros would prefer for us to think of it, but it is so terribly designed that it actually baffles me, because these characters are putting their lives on the line for an empire, for a military that has no idea what it's doing. No wonder there is a 400+ year war going on. I am more surprised that this empire hasn't lost already, because they are doing a horrible job. They have a codex that everyone agrees is not followed. Really, these characters, these soldiers, are trying to find loopholes more than actually following it, and those who follow the codex are immediately disrespected and viewed as like negative characters we shouldn't like. Case in point, Violet tells her older sister, who's a dragon rider, that she has read the codex a few times, and Mira's response is this: "Good, then you know that the other riders can kill you at any time, and the cutthroat cadets will try. Fewer cadets means better odds at threshing. There are never enough dragons willing to bond, and anyone reckless enough to get themselves killed isn't worthy of a dragon anyway." So we know that cadets are also happy to kill each other because the codex doesn't really, say anything against it beyond if you're asleep. And even then, we know, if you read this book, that cadets still try to kill each other in their sleep anyway. And what kind of military is chill with this? One, it should be communal. You should be, wanting to encourage loyalty, bravery, courage, teamwork, so that when you're on the battlefield, you can trust the soldier that you're fighting next to you. Meanwhile, they're acting as though the true enemy is inside the walls. The call is coming from inside the house, and I just cannot understand why that's so normalized. They also have this really backward belief that if you're too weak or too strong, there's a target on your back. In fact, we read the same storyline twice in this one book. In the first third, Violet is told, hey, you've got a target on your back because you're so weak and tiny and small. And then when she actually proves herself, if you want to call it proving yourself, and gains 2 dragons backing her, super powerful dragons, now they're saying, hey, now you've got a target on your back because you're too powerful. And I'm just like, fool me once, fool me twice. What are we doing here? I will say it's quite funny, but not really in a like ha-ha, but more of a sad way, how anti-military this book is, and Rebecca Yarros doesn't really seem to notice that. I know that she is a second-generation army brat and seems to be quite proud of it, as she should. She's coming from a family who's proud to be a part of the military. They do them. But really, when you get down to it, some of the depictions in this book, I'm like, This is mirroring the US military in a very bad way. Case in point, we meet Dylan, who does not survive the longest balance beam in the world. And on top of that, his goals, his reasons for joining the military are terrible. He says that there are some great perks to becoming a dragon rider. You get more pay, your uniform is actually more lax, and you get to marry your sweetheart a little bit earlier. What does this sound like? And then he proceeds to fall off the balance beam immediately. Meanwhile, Rhiannon, another friend that Violet meets while climbing the stairs that never end, and she says that she's wanted to be a dragon rider since she was a child, and yet Rhiannon doesn't know what a squad is. Violet has to whisper it to her so that Rhiannon knows what's happening, just because Rhiannon's not from a military family. If I was going to join the military, which I never will, but if I were to do that, I would probably borrow a book from the library, do a little bit of a Google search in our world, because we have the internet. I would figure out what a squad is. I would at least figure out the main basics of what the military entails before I sign a contract and risk my life for it. None of these people even have enough common sense to have traction on their shoes. Has anyone ever walked outside, gone for a hike, walked in the snow? You should have traction on your shoes. Rhiannon comes from like a farming community. Obviously, like how would she have walked in on here with slick soles and now she has to survive only because of Violet giving her one of her shoes? Shoes that she was given to by Mira, by the way, so Violet is just as stupid. If that isn't commentary saying that we shouldn't let children at the age of 18 to sign up for the military before their brains have even fully developed, I don't know what is. The military in this book is dumb, or it's a huge conspiracy in which the other side is trying to have them kill themselves, and they're doing a really bang-up job about it. I hate that a saddle was introduced 300 pages into this 500-page book. What are we doing? This is the age of invention, apparently, and those who are spearheading it are Xaden and Mira? Are you kidding me? Not only have we had, again, a 400 years war in which dragon riders have been pairing with dragons, flying and falling in the most ridiculous fashion, and no one in their right mind thought, maybe a saddle would be a good idea. It had to be Xaden. Honestly, the only character I liked in this entire book. And then on top of that, Mira has to come up with the idea of armor that is made from dragon scales. What are these people doing? Are they sleeping on the job? No one thought of those inventions until these two people in this random same period of time. Get out of here. It just makes every death that is mentioned from a rider falling to their death from a dragon completely stupid. Like, why are we even having these people die then? And no one's mentioning, maybe, just maybe, everyone should have a saddle. That might lessen the death toll. I don't know, but who am I? I've never run a military. I've never invented anything in my life, so I guess maybe I'm the one in the wrong. Speaking of dying from really dumb things, I hate how everyone is dying in the most random ways. It's just briefly mentioned, and then we carry on with the narrative, which doesn't really have a plot. It's just a bunch of people talking in different places all the time. I have a list, so here goes nothing. We had 3 people die from climbing the stairs alone the year before Violet becomes a candidate. So oh my gosh, this scene was so funny because she very casually mentions that, yeah, last year 2 people died from falling down the stairs. And then a 3rd person died because one of them fell on her. Are you kidding me? I don't know if we're supposed to laugh or be shaking in our boots, but I'm certainly not doing the latter. The first trial is to test balance, and everyone is trying to be their best Simone Biles, which no one can be. By the way, Biles, I still don't know who your husband is. And circling back to the incompetence of this entire system, when the dragons finally show up, people are screaming. They're out of their minds as if they didn't realize that dragon was in the name of dragon rider. So these dragons are like shooting fire lasers from their mouths. You know how they do. And I can't help but laugh and think, did no one tell these people what they were signing up for? So of course we had like 3 or 4 people die from that. A boy fell in a river. We never even get his name. He literally just falls in the river, and this is a recollection that Violet has as she's foraging, pretending to be Katniss. And like I said, we've got cadets killing each other, which is just so stupid. We have Jack Harlow, of all people,
rapping around town.
Jack Barlow, of all people, just being a psychotic Neanderthal, and no one is wondering, should we let a man like this into the army? Meh, I guess so. Complete insanity. People falling from dragons, I already mentioned it. Oh god. Cadets getting their signets. I was roaring when this was happening because it just ended up being such quick moments that I didn't even know if we were meant to care or really process the fact that multiple people were dying from getting their powers. The one death that I found the most interesting that was only given a page, I'm not even lying about that, was this random cadet who had the ability to mind read. Of course, he's freaking out, screaming because everyone's mind is in his at one time, and they just, in an instant, kill him and carry on as if nothing happened. And I know that it's a prohibited ability. Shouldn't people be questioning that? Why is it prohibited? What is the Empire hiding from you? And on top of that, why is Dain alive then? Because that's pretty much what his power is, but worse. He can read people's minds from their memories a couple minutes earlier. Like, it's a shit power, but it's still pretty much mind reading. And then within 2 pages of each other, we have someone combust into flames, and then a couple paragraphs later, 2 cadets die because one of them gets the ability to freeze, and they freeze themselves and their neighbor to death, and I'm just like, okay. Violet even tells Mira at one point when they reunite that she is in more danger at the college than if she goes for a midnight ride with the dragons to see Rhiannon's family. And you know what Mira says? Fair point. Are we kidding? Why is the college the most dangerous place in this book when there is a war raging? I hate how abrupt these chapters end, and we don't get to pick up where we left off, so we have no idea what happened in that very tense moment. It happens numerous times, but there are 2 that I cannot help but laugh about because of how crazy they are. I would like to direct the class to the end of chapter 4, page 53. We get this honestly brilliant cafeteria-esque drama scene right out of Mean Girls in which Dain and Violet enter the room at the same time. It's like a rotunda, and across the way, Xaden is there being, Xaden. He spies them and shouts across everyone, making other cadets turn and be, intrigued by the drama that's about to ensue. And I find him to be the best drama queen in this scene. Let me guess, Xaden continues, glancing between Dain and me. Childhood friends, first loves even. Xaden, I love it. And for some reason, this terrifies Dain and Violet to the point where Dain is shouting at Violet. Run, Violet, Dain orders me, now. And the chapter ends with, I bolt. So Violet just runs away. And I was like, okay, you know what? As high school as this is, I'm into it. I really want to see if Xaden, confronts her and they have this discussion because he's obviously going to be the love interest. So I'm ready for this kind of tense scene. Flip to the beginning of chapter 5. Welcome to your first battle brief, Professor De Vera says. I'm sorry, what? It's never addressed. It's literally never mentioned that she runs away from Xaden after that declaration. And I just don't know what we're supposed to take from that. And then the next one very quickly is at the end of chapter 26 on page 331. Violet's best friend, Rhiannon, gets to reunite with her family. The outpost that they have been visiting is only about an hour away via dragon. And so they're in this village. Rhiannon's having a great time with her family. Mira came along. So Mira and Violet are off to the side discussing, Violet's love triangle that isn't really a love triangle between Dain and Xaden. And then Violet asks Mira, so by the way, because Xaden and I are both dragon riders whose dragons are paired, they're mated, how long can we actually be apart from each other? This is, honestly a good question. I wanted to know the answer too. And you expect Mira to answer, but no, we have a new guest in the mix. Turns out about 3 days is their max. Xaden steps out of the shadows. I'm telling you, Xaden is the best drama queen ever. But with that said, that's the end of another chapter, and I'm like, okay, great, we're gonna have an interaction between Xaden and Mira. I'm intrigued to see how they, engage in conversation when discussing Violet in front of them. Chapter 27. So all we do is wait for something to happen, Riddick asks the next afternoon. We just lost 24 hours. What happened? And then a page or 2 later, it's mentioned that Xaden hasn't said a word to Mira at all since he arrived. And I just don't know how that could have happened without him being the most rude or weirdly silent person on that entire interaction. It's wild. And abrupt endings to chapters or scenes within chapters happen all the time in this narrative, and we never get any type of callback to them. It's really frustrating because it ends up being this jarring jumble of random scenes that are not interconnected at all. I hate that through and through, this is clearly a YA storyline that has sexual content for adults in it. It's so confusing, and it really messes with the narrative voice, because I'm telling you, if they removed the sexual content or any mention of their age, you would think this is for teens. These are 16 and 17-year-olds who are forced to join the military earlier than, our norm, and now they're battling with dragons. I kid you not. The only way that I could get through this book was telling myself that they're YA, because the dialogue is so cringy. Even the discussions of sex, of sexual partners, sexual innuendos, felt as though it was forced, like teenagers trying to prove to themselves and others that they know what sex is. It doesn't help that it's set at a school. I know that it's a military college, but we have students talking about tutoring and classes as if they are literally going to PE and history class, and that's all I could think of. It doesn't help that there is so much inspiration that clearly comes from YA dystopian lit and fantasy lit, if we're going to be honest, from the early 2000s and 2010s. I'm not the first, and I won't be the last to mention how similar this is to Divergent, Hunger Games, and many other well-loved YA series. And that's not inherently bad. I know that a lot of critics of this book argue that too much was taken from those well-loved series, and I can get it to an extent, but at the same time, when you are someone who loves a certain genre, who reads only one genre, or someone who loves tropes, who loves a certain conflict or a certain reveal, you must admit that those predictable moments come from books that were published beforehand. We do get unique storylines, we get authors who take chances and twist up a little bit of like retellings, reimaginings, but at their heart, they come from original stories. So we just kind of have to accept that not all books will be 100% unique. It's really kind of impossible, even though there are some that I would argue are like very unique gems in their own right. Rebecca Yarros takes these, tried and true elements from YA dystopian lit and actually puts them into a narrative that they don't work in. For instance, this weak main character, or at least an unprepared main character that enters the dangerous faction, it's very much giving Triss from Divergent, being a part of the Dauntless. And yes, in that narrative, we had candidates battling with each other, being willing to kill each other because there were only a few spots in which someone could graduate and be truly a part of the Dauntless faction. It doesn't make sense in Fourth Wing to do that because there's a war going on. You are a part of the military. You should not want to kill each other, and it's also just like a waste of life. In all honesty, if someone isn't going to make the cut to be a dragon rider, I get it, but why would you waste their life just letting them die trying to become a dragon rider when you could send them to the front, be a foot soldier, or reallocate them in other resourceful ways, like making them a healer, making them a scribe? It's just one of those things where I'm like, you are battling an enemy and you're gonna help them out by killing each other? It's just insanity. It legit screams dystopian. It screams military regime in which the military is the enemy. And I'm pretty sure Violet doesn't think that she's working for the enemy right now. At least I don't think she is. And this is the moment where I reveal I did DNF this book. I'm so sorry. I know I led you all astray. I read about 73% of the book. I got to the point where she ended up becoming a lightning wielder. She had some lightning wielder sex with Xaden, and now she's trying to learn how to master it in this random field while Taryn and Xaden kind of make fun of her and send her images of herself having sex with Xaden. That's where I stopped. I loathe the friendship between Dain and Violet. And before you come at me, I know we're meant to. I know we're not meant to root for Dain. We're not meant to root for Dain. But then the question is, what is the point? I think that because it's so obvious that this is enemies to lovers, even though it's really not enemies to lovers, it's enemies children, to lovers, if we're really going to be honest about it. I feel like the question is, why are we even having Violet consider in the beginning that she has romantic feelings for someone who's meant to be her childhood best friend? If that's the case, they were never friends. She's never had a real friend in her life, which is very sad for her. And I don't really get this dynamic. You see it all the time in YA dystopian lit, all the freaking time. And no one's ever surprised. Actually, you see it in a lot of YA lit. Team Jacob, we knew she wasn't going to be with Jacob. I mean, come on. And I'm still not over the fact that he doesn't get the girl, but he gets the girl's daughter. And at this point, it ends up just being a way for Violet to compare how great Xaden is to Dain. And because we know that she's never going to choose Dain, anytime the two of these men end up butting heads and having a measuring contest, it honestly ends up being pointless. Why are we in this scene when it means nothing? I think it could have been useful if they truly were friends and we were shown it. We weren't just told by Rebecca Yarros through narration a million times as everyone shouts, they were best friend childhood. What am I saying? They were best friends in childhood. It's like, okay, you keep telling me that, but I'm not gonna lie, I don't believe it. I do not see it. They climb trees together, okay. It could have worked if they were truly best friends and simply clashed as far as ideology, their beliefs in how they can best suit, their course throughout the military. That could have worked. That could have been a dynamic. Whereas having this unnecessary love interest that she immediately throws away and then just hates him, it's really boring and undynamic. With that said, I can also see how Dain is simply a plot device to allow Violet to shit on him and others who actually follow the Codex, making her the biggest hypocrite in the world. I hate Violet's hypocrisy. One of Violet's strengths throughout this book that I really appreciated was that she used her resources when she could, right? She used her knowledge. She took advantage of some nepotism, the fact that she was trained as a scribe for her entire life, which we will get to. That includes her knowledge of poisons and local flora and fauna. It also includes her ability to read text and retain quite a bit of that information, including the Codex. Throughout this book multiple times, she relies on the Codex to either protect her life or defend her choices when trying to succeed throughout these trials. And yet, at the same time, she is so disrespectful for Dain and hates that he's a rule follower. She loses respect for him. And I'm just like, girl, have you looked in the mirror lately? And maybe what she hates is that he follows the rules because he believes it's the right thing to do, whereas she follows the rules to protect herself because she's an individual. And that echoes back to the problem with the way this military is designed, the culture within this military, because it is dog eat dog. So really the rules are apparently only meant to be used selfishly and to protect oneself rather than for the greater good. And I'm not saying the Codex is perfect. I'm not saying that all of the rules should be followed. But if you have issues with the rules, then that means that they should be fixed. That's the problem you should have with it, not people who want to follow the rules. Let's go to chapter 2, page 27. I'm telling you, I would be a scribe in this world. The rapper of the story, Jack, is obviously trying to kill Violet because he's crazy. And again, no one really bats an eye about it, but it's fine. And to protect herself, Violet uses the Codex. And I applaud her for it. She says, it is unlawful for a writer to cause another harm, while in a quadrant formation or in the supervisory presence of a superior ranking cadet. I recite from the Codex, my heartbeat still in my throat, as it will diminish the efficacy of the wing. And given the crowd behind us, I think it's clear to argue that it's a formation, Article 3 section, and she gets interrupted by the Neanderthal. But girl, you just used the Codex to save you. And then later on, when she ends up succeeding in the ninja warrior obstacle course that everyone has to go through, Amber, Dain's ex-lover, I guess, ends up throwing the book at her, saying, hey, you violated the Codex. And you know what Violet does? After in her mind, shaming Dain and what's her name? Amber, for actually using the Codex, she uses it against them to say, no, I'm actually within my rights to do it. And I'm just like, why are you such a hypocrite? Be happy that the Codex actually can be useful, because I'm not gonna lie, when Mira was talking about it in chapter 1, I thought it was gonna do fuck all. I hate Jack Barlow. Again, you're all probably thinking, Leandra, you're meant to hate Jack Barlow, but I hate what he represents, which is this cartoonish Neanderthal villain that is reminding me of the Joker, Mojo Jojo, just someone who is a caricature of himself. He has no texture, no personality. Every time he speaks, it's about killing. He wants to kill Violet and others. He wants to see dragons killing things. He wants to kill the enemy. And I'm just like, dude, get another personality trait. And then when he's killed by Violet, she is feeling all of this regret. She voms everywhere. For some reason, this brings up her mommy issues as well. So she's really going through the ringer. And all I can think of, you should have just killed him on the balance beam. You would have saved a few lives in the process, if we're going to be honest. And everyone's lives would have been easier. I feel regret that this was done so late in the book that I'm just thinking, what was the point of him? And I'm not gonna lie, what grinds my gears the most is we have Jack Barlow, but all I could think of every single time his name came up was Jack Harlow.
What the hell is this?
And yes, the only thing I know about that rapper is that he was on Chicken Shop Date, so that was what was going through my head. I hate that Violet is the chosen one, but it's done through nepotism, privilege, and all of the advantages granted to her that other cadets don't have. Listen, I'm not totally against the chosen one trope, whether it's done as it should be, in which, the chosen one has the abilities, has the knowledge, is a natural leader. I'm here for it. I'm also here for the chosen one trope when it's turned on its head and it's a bit of a joke, a bit of a satire, and the person who's the chosen one, according to a prophecy, is kind of a buffoon, really shouldn't be placed in danger or in any type of leadership position, and it's thanks to everyone around them that keeps them going, and it's just kind of a funny breaking of the fourth wall. I'm good with either situation. However, when we have someone who clearly should not be surviving in this world and is only surviving because of her status and because everyone else and their mother is trying to protect them, except for the main character's mother, which I grant he was kind of funny. But she's treated as this remarkable, amazing, unique, natural character who, of course, is breaking anyone's expectations of her and doing things that hasn't been seen in hundreds of years. The math isn't mathing. When I mention nepotism or any type of privilege surrounding Violet, it's because of her status as being the daughter of a general. Her mom is a dragon rider. Her dad was a well-respected scribe. Her sister had been trained for 12 years before joining the college in combat by the best of the best. Mira was a child of nepotism herself. Violet, on the other hand, ends up getting the short end of the stick, mainly because her mom switches gears 6 months before she's supposed to enter college. If she had entered the college as a scribe, she would have had so much more experience and been so much better than all of the other scribes combined because of her background, because she was trained by the best scribes there were. But we're supposed to be like, oh, poor Violet, because she only had 6 months of sparring training beforehand, when it's like, well, yeah, a lot of these people didn't have any training. I mean, they were ready to walk a balance beam in thunder and lightning and wind without any traction on their shoes. And we're supposed to feel bad for Violet. And time again, the only reason why Violet survives is thanks to other people. Mira gave her the shoes with traction. Mira gave her the dragon scale corset that protected her life multiple times. Did any other cadet have that advantage? No. Violet was given the Book of Brennan, another person who went through the school and survived. So she's a legacy. She has 2 people. Granted, Brennan, was dead, I guess, but they still were there to provide her with the knowledge and the advantage that no one else had. This is probably a time when I should mention that Violet is meant to provide representation for those with EDS, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. I'm not someone who lives with this condition, so I can only speak from what I've heard from others, but I've been told by many a person, especially those who have EDS, that this representation is not well done. It's actually more of an idealist sketch of what it would be like to be a person with EDS day to day, and many people who have it are actually choosing not to read the book at all because they know it would not make them feel good about their own situations. I would also argue that Rebecca Yarros kind of forgets that her character is supposed to have this representation. That's not to say that one's disability should be mentioned every single page in every single moment, but when it comes to Violet's day-to-day life, how often she's put in danger and she has bruises, injuries, you would think that it would be mentioned more often than it is in the second half of the book. Not to mention, she gets physically intimate with Xaden, and I would expect her physical partner would want to discuss this and make sure that he's not hurting her and making sure she's comfortable with getting physical with him. And I'm just saying this from a point of view in which Xaden doesn't live with EDS, so he wouldn't know how far to push her and what her comfort level is. So they should have this discussion before they get intimate, if anything. The reason why I'm even bringing up EDS and the representation that's within Violet is because I know some people would argue that that is the opposite of an advantage. That's not part of her privilege or the nepotism that she is very, happy to take advantage of. However, you also see it in her EDS because she has this group of healers who are happy to save her and protect her. And while there's a bit of pushback, in the end, a lot of times they do heal her. They help her. And my question is, if a farmer's child, farmer's son or daughter who has EDS decides to enter, the college to try to become a dragon rider, would they get the same privilege? Would they be, taken care of 24/7 if they so chose? No. So even that little bit of care that Violet gets in the beginning is an advantage, not to accommodate for her EDS, because let's be honest, this world clearly doesn't accommodate for anyone with disabilities. It's because of who she is, who her mother is. You get the gist. And finally, I hate the empathic connection between the dragons and the dragon riders, and the fact that that includes lust. Listen, like I should have said at the beginning of this video, I'm not trying to yuck anyone's yum. I would have been uncomfortable with it anyway, just because I think it's really weird and an odd plot device to get Xaden and Violet to admit their physical attraction for each other, even though, let's be honest, Violet's the horniest main character you ever did see. Every single chapter she mentions, if not a sexual innuendo, an objectification of the men around her and how hot Xaden is. In fact, she admits that she knows nothing about him. And I think Rebecca Yarros tries to make up for it with like a one-page montage of her asking him random questions, like if he has siblings and what his favorite dessert is. And then we just proceed to act like that one-page scene never happened. What I'm trying to say is Violet wants it bad. She is in desperate need of sexual release. And we need her to go to maybe like a sexual therapist. They need to help her figure out how to relieve her tension so she's not ogling everyone around her. But you know what? It is what it is. The dragons, the riders, they show each other emotions, thoughts. It happens, whatever. My biggest issue is it's never addressed where Andarna fits in this, because Andarna very clearly can sense Violet's tension, her fear. She can also sense her thoughts. They can talk not just empathically, but also telepathically. And so with Violet being the horniest horn dog that ever did exist, what is she transferring? What feelings is she transferring to Andarna? Is that ever addressed? Because I know that Taryn is a super powerful dragon, and that's why he can kind of shut Violet off when he wants, and Violet needs to learn how to do the same. But Andarna's a child. She's a baby dragon. She's only 2 years old. They all call her hatchling. Are we not going to address how weird that is? So can someone explain to me in the comments, if you got this far, that it's all okay and I misunderstood? Please give me even a line. Please cite a chapter, cite a page that confirms that Andarna is safe from the horny mind that is Violet, because that's all I could think about. And that's why I hate it so much. Thank you everyone who got to the end. If you had fun, if you enjoyed my commentary, maybe had a little bit of a chuckle, a little bit of a smile, maybe consider subscribing and also checking out my other rants, because I had a good time making those as well. Thank you for my manor guests. I really do appreciate you guys so much. I hope that you are having a great time at the manor and enjoying solving a murder or two. And also, if you're not feeling chatty or not feeling like giving me recommendations for Romantasy, then feel free to provide a dragon emoji, maybe a flower to represent the worst protagonist that ever existed. You know, get creative. And like I said, if you want another rant, a video is going to be right here. And thank you all so much. I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!